Hello and welcome back to another kidOYO tutorial. Now where you left off was you should have taken your main vessel or your main sprite here and moved it to the furthest point to the right. So I'm going to move mine just back oops. Let me use my mouse here. I'm going to move it back just to the point where it's about to leave this quadrant of space, or really just touch the edge of the stage. So I can see in this little area over here that it's mapped me, and it's telling me that my x coordinate currently is 188. So what I need to do is set up a condition that says when my x position is greater than 188, meaning it's moved beyond this point, then it's going to queue up a command that will change my backdrop to the next one. So it'll make it look like it goes from the sun to Mercury. Okay, so we do that. I'm going to make sure I click on the stop so I'm not running active script. I'm going to go into my control blocks. I'm going to get this if condition and I'm going to place it inside my first if condition. So now I need to set up a formula here. So to find formulas, I go into operators and I'm going to use this value here. I want the greater than. So I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to just place it in this open gray space for while I'm working on it, and then I can drag it into the open Boolean section. Okay, so now I need to go back in and find something that shows me X position. So if I scroll down in my motion blocks, I'll see a block that actually says X position. So I'm going to drag that out and place it in the first opening of my operator. So now it says if the X position is greater than, and I know here that I'm currently at 188, and if I move any further past there, I want it to change the location. I want it to change the stage backdrop. So I'm going to just type in to this open space 188, and now I can drag this and make sure you see where I'm dragging it right by the green part. If I were to just accidentally grab it by here, it will pull that right back out. So you just want to make sure you're grabbing in the right place. I'll drag it in and place it in my condition. Now I have if X position is greater than 188 then, and I know what I want to happen. I want it to change which backdrop is showing. So whenever I'm changing the way something appears, I'm going to go into my looks category and I'm going to choose the one that says switch backdrop to, and it currently says Neptune, but this is a drop down menu so I can change it. So I'm going to drag this in and I'm going to say switch to, and I'm actually going to tell it to switch to the next backdrop, because if I just choose Mercury, then when it goes through to have Mercury on the backdrop and I say switch backdrop, it's going to keep switching to Mercury and it'll always be stuck there. So I want to say to switch to next backdrop. Now the other thing that I need to happen is I need to create the illusion that when it switches to that next backdrop, and watch, let's see. So now it switches, but it already looks like I'm on the way out. So that's not really what I want to happen. So I also need to tell it to change where it is located on in outer space, really. So I'm going to go backwards here. Oops. I'm going to drag my spaceship right here where it would look like it's coming into this section of space. And now I can see where my X position is again. So I can see now my X is at minus 181. So I need to also tell me to go to that position. So I'm going to use a block in the motions category because it deals with going somewhere. I'm going to use this one, which has an X and a Y coordinate, and it is going to tell me that when my X position reaches greater than 188, switch to the next backdrop and teleport me back to the beginning of that stage, or the furthest left-hand side. So it creates the illusion that we are moving through space. So I'm going to place that in here. Okay, so now we actually need to repeat this step, but for the left arrow, so that I can travel to the left, and if I hit the left-hand side, it'll teleport me back into the quadrant of space that would come before. So in this case, it's in Mercury, and if I go backwards to the left, I should ultimately end up at the sun, right? If I go to the right, I should end up at Venus. If I go to the left, I should end up at the sun. You can see why it's important to name your backdrops as we start to move a little further. because we're going to tell it by default which quadrant of space to start in. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we're going to repeat this similar process here. So we're going to go into our control blocks. We're going to choose an if-then condition, and we're going to place it inside of the left arrow key condition. And I'm going to stop my script from running. So I'm going to need to go into operators, and this time I'm going to choose the less than value, and I'm going to go to my motion blocks. I'm going to get the X position, and I'm going to say if the X position is less than minus 181, I'm going to place this in here, and then I'm going to tell it to switch to the previous backdrop. So to find this, I'm going to go into my looks. I'm going to choose switch backdrop to, and from the drop-down menu, choose previous. And then the same thing, I need it to make it look like it's actually arriving over here on the right-hand side, because when I go backwards, let's see, if I go backwards, I want to make it look like I can actually travel back to the previous. Okay, so there's Neptune. All right, so the sun. So I want to go to the previous, but so let me come all the way over here. Oops, and this is where I don't want to go any further beyond 188. So I can actually, since it's kind of challenging right here when my code is running, I know that I really just want to use the opposite of this block that I used up here. So I can go into my motion blocks. I can pull this block out, and I'm just going to change this to say 180. You know what? I'll make it 181. Okay, so now it should appear at the correct position when I move back and forth. So if I go to the right, I should progress to the next planet, Mercury, Venus. Okay, now if I go backwards, go to Mercury, and then I go to the sun. So perfect, so it's working. Okay, so now you have the correct programming to move your rocket or vessel back and forth, and now we need to make your main sprite, or your second sprite here, which is your information sprite, also trigger to show up on the correct backdrop. You don't want it to say information about Earth when the sun is showing, or information about the moon, or information about the sun when Mercury is showing. You want them to show up in the right location. So you can move on to the next section of the lesson, and we'll be ready for that.